Wonderful. So yeah, apologies for the delay, everyone. But we're all here now. So thank you for coming. So glad you could make it tonight. So yeah, welcome to our event this evening with Deena in conversation about her book, Okay Little Bird. If you don't know me, my name's Emma. I'm the community manager of Untangle. If you're new to Untangle, we provide practical and emotional support all in one place for anyone who's lost a loved one. So yeah, we're really excited to have Deena with us tonight. Deena is a multimedia artist and former stand-up comedian, and she's now written her debut novel, Okay Little Bird. Her book, Okay Little Bird, shares the unique, irreverent and touching relationship that she had with her lovable, quirky cowboy father. I will read the blurb to you now, just for a bit of context. So in the world of Little Bird, three siblings experience the same fathers differently, navigating stringent rules, cantankerous family dinners, unfiltered commentaries, and lots of love. Okay Little Bird takes the reader on a bouncy ride from laughter to tears. Everything is funny till a seemingly invincible father succumbs to a terminal illness and the COVID-19 pandemic. Little Bird sets out to make things okay for her father in a lifetime. Through a lifetime of wry banter, voicemails, letters, and bad gifts, fly with Little Bird as she learns that even in the worst of times, the gem of laughter is the best coping tool of all. So tonight we'll talk about Deena's experience of losing her father during the pandemic, what she's learned from her loss, and what inspired her to use this experience to write a book. So we'll have a conversation, and there'll be time for a Q&A at the end. So yeah, thank you so much for everyone. Thank you, Deena. How are you this evening?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me, Emma. And it's so nice to see everyone here. I appreciate your time. And if you've got a mute button or a volume, if you can turn it down, that way I won't get the feedback. Awesome. Thank you. Because sometimes I can't hear and then I don't want to miss your questions or comments. And so feel free to jump in to ask me questions or whatever you want. I really love the opportunity to talk to everyone. Okay, Little Bird, this is what it looks like. I've got my papers in there, my notes, but really, I didn't set out to write a book. You know, I had this amazing relationship with a really quirky father, but when he became terminally ill, things changed. And I just was starting to pay attention to things. And the day before he died, I was sitting next to him in hospice and I started jotting a few things down. And the next thing I knew, a year and a half later, I had a book. And I had an important story to tell. It's my story about my father, but it's really a story about everyone who has somebody special in their life that they lost or will lose, and how we navigate that. We don't always have choices about what happens to us, but we do have choices about how we handle it. And my father had the craziest sense of humor. It didn't matter if we were standing in a grocery store, snacking on crisps in front of the TV, whatever we were doing, we were having a good time. But you know, when we were navigating his illness, things weren't so funny for him. So it was just being with him during this time. And then after he passed away, I was able to get gems of his sense of humor back that stayed with me, that helped me through the process. So I think humor is a super important coping tool. And most people don't think, okay, something horrible happened, now I'm just going to start cracking jokes. It's really not like that. It's taking the essence of the person and figuring out how you can use that in a positive way to move forward. Because really, when you do that, they stay with you. So that's kind of, you know, what the book's about.
Thank you. So I've read the book, really enjoyed it. And one thing that I really enjoyed was sort of how much of your father was in, you know, how much description of him, his sort of his quirks, his eccentricities, all of his kind of, you know, your relationship. So would you like to tell everyone kind of a bit about your relationship with your father, and yeah, kind of how your sort of relationship blossomed over the course of your life?
So, okay, I'm sorry. That is my doorbell, also known as my poodle. I apologize. Welcome to live virtual. So my father and I, even when I was a little girl, I somehow knew that I could get under his skin. And I had an older brother and sister, but he was more strict with them. I guess by the time they had me, I'm the baby of the family. Not an unusual story. He wasn't as strict. And he could be gruff at times, He was very strict. But I just was never put off by his demeanor. I never found it intimidating. I mean, he wasn't mean or anything, but he could be a little bit irritable, or, we've all had those strict people in our lives. And so I just kept kind of pushing and pushing, and I kind of saw light through the cracks, like, ooh, his resolve is kind of breaking down. And I was able to get kind of under his skin, and we got so, so close. We were best friends. And growing up, as I got older and we moved closer to him, I wanted my daughter to know her grandparents. We would spend times just doing life. We would go to medical appointments or recitals or whatever. And when he began to get sick, which is a difficult time, and I'm sure a lot of you have dealt with this, you go from being the child to the caretaker, right? And suddenly I'm not taking hugs. I became a friend, and I became that person helping him out. And I remember two things. One, he let me take him to a diagnostic appointment, and he had lost so much weight that first of all, he was such a proud man. This guy loved clothes. More than any woman I ever met. I mean, he could have 600 belts and it wasn't enough belts, cowboy boots, everything. So when he lost weight, he was still focused on his appearance, and it was very important to him, because that was that last bastion of holding on. And we went to this appointment, and they had to take his shirt off. And when I came in, he said, "I'm so embarrassed. I'm so skinny." I said, "It's okay, Dad." And he allowed me to see him in this vulnerable state. And I was very honored, and quieted. And I felt so grateful that he allowed me that time. I didn't have to be anything but there with him. And there's a story that I wanted to share, which was, you learn in the back of the book toward the end why it's called Okay, Little Bird. But my father had several terminal diagnoses before what actually took him. And the first time he was diagnosed with this rare form of cancer, which he ended up beating, I happened to be home by himself when he got the call, and I'm on the couch with him. And there was never a time where I couldn't say anything to him. And I didn't know what to do. It was just me and him sitting on the couch. So I kind of put my hand on his shoulder and I said, "It'll be okay, Dad." And he turned and looked at me and he said, "No, it's not going to be okay. And you can't tell somebody it is going to be okay. If you want to be here for me, then you tell me I'm here for you. I'm here to listen," or whatever. Because you know what? It's not okay to just tell somebody it's going to be okay, because in the reality, maybe it's not. And what I realized is I was saying that for me. And I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but people say, "Oh, it's okay, it's fine." You know what? If you don't feel okay because you're grieving, it's okay to not be okay. And the best thing you can do is have somebody just sitting there with you. If you want to sit quietly in fuzzy slippers, eating on the couch, that's what you're needing, just quiet. And so it was just a really incredible time from start to finish. And it was an amazing relationship. So yeah, that kind of gives you a description.
So you mentioned that you sort of didn't set out to write the book, but obviously, you've ended up writing a book. So what sort of motivated you to perhaps write this down, but then turned into the book as it is today?
Well, we had such a quirky relationship. He was such a funny guy. If he had a microphone at a wedding, forget about it. He was telling jokes. He had people laughing. He just was not your typical dad. He was a cowboy. I mean, I remember going out to watch him ride horses, and "Deena, if you want to learn how to ride a horse, you have to clean the poop out of the stall." I'm thinking, really? Can't we just go to McDonald's or something for a hamburger? So, he had all these interests and things like that. And we would banter and we'd go back and forth. And a lot of times it was like if you would sit and watch something on TV. And I just thought, well, this is a really unusual relationship, but it was a best friendship. We accepted each other. We were unconditional. When I had challenges in school, he never made me feel bad. He would always ask me questions. "Do you think maybe you were talking in class?" Probably, but he never made me feel bad, not once. And I never made him feel bad if he was irritable or gruff. I just accepted him unconditionally. And I think because of that, we sort of had this mutual admiration. We were able to enjoy each other. I think a lot of times in our lives, the people in our lives, we sometimes take them for face value instead of depersonalizing so we can enjoy them. And that's what we did. It was just pure joy all the time.
Yeah. So, how did you find the writing process? Did it perhaps help you cope with your grief? Did it bring more things up? How did you find that?
Well, I just realized there was one thing I wanted to add on to your previous question, which was the reason I wrote the book was because of that incredible relationship. And also, I felt there was a story to tell about the grief process with humor. The writing process is interesting. A lot of people say, boy, that must have been really cathartic. Was it cheaper than therapy? I don't know. I have no idea. But I didn't realize what I was doing therapeutically till I got done. And yes, I believe it was. It was very painful because I started writing. I did not realize it was going to be the day before he passed away, which was Father's Day. And in typical dad humor, he didn't want to screw up a perfectly good holiday, so he waited till the day after. I thought that was thoughtful. So again, this is the sense of humor that I had to have. So I started writing a few things down, and then he passed away, and I never stopped. It was painful. It required me to look backwards at what I had and look forward at what I no longer had. And it forced me to be in the present, dealing with everything, what my mother was going through, my daughter, everybody in the family. Ironically, in writing the book, I was really caring for everybody else. I didn't realize I was caring for myself in writing the book, but it was a really great way to continue to have him with me daily, because I never lifted my head up from the laptop.
Mm. And was there a section that you sort of was a favorite piece to write, perhaps a favorite memory that you look back on when you were writing?
There's so many. That's such a great question. There's a couple of favorites. Okay, Little Bird, the title, basically, you mentioned the COVID. So my father didn't pass away from COVID, but, when he was no longer able to be cared for at home, he needed medical attention. So my mother had to place him in a group home. And we were able to see him maybe 3-4 times. And then COVID hit. And I'm sure all of you had heard stories. Suddenly everything's locked down. I couldn't get to him. And I thought, oh my gosh, not bad enough. I have limited time. Now I can't even get to my father. So I was scrambling, dropping off food. I have the nurses try and hold up a cell phone to do FaceTime, which on a good day is challenging, even when you're not sick. And then several weeks later, I got a call that I could go see him. And he happened to have a patio off of his room. So had the mask on. This was before vaccines. And I made a sandwich and chips and everything that I knew he couldn't eat. He didn't have an appetite, but I always bring food. That's what my mother taught me, never go empty handed. So of course I didn't want to screw that up. So I made the food. I go there. I had instructions to drop the food off, and the nurse is in his room, and I hear noise, and I'm thinking they were supposed to have me look through the door to just talk to him through the screen. And the nurse said, Deena, he wants to get up and come see you through the door. And I thought my heart was going to explode. My father couldn't even move. He had no upper body strength. It took everything he had to get in that transport chair. He wanted to be wheeled to the window to see me. My heart rose and broke in that moment. And if I had 3 minutes with him, that's all it was. I could see he had no stamina. And finally, when it was time to go, he just said, okay, little bird. I knew I would never be the same at that moment. Every time I tell the story, the hair goes up on my neck. Because in those words, he was saying goodbye. He was letting things go. And for me, he had never called me that nickname in my entire life. And it just was a profound experience. And so that's kind of how that happened. So that was one of my favorites. And then the other favorite is The Complete Dichotomy, which is called Incoming One-Liners, where I go see him for the first time at the cemetery. Now, I'm sure you know that there's no right or wrong when you go. Nobody knows what to do. Do you take a snack? Do you sit down? Do you talk? Do you see if people are watching you talk? I mean, it's crazy. It's weird. And it's also, very sad. So the first time I went, in the Jewish tradition, they wait a year to put a formalized stone with the person's name and everything on it. So it had only been a little bit, and I couldn't find them. And then I found this teeny little card, And I walked up and all I could do was hear his voice going, "Oh, that's nice. I made it to 85." And all I could do was put a lousy card on the ground. Nobody's ever going to find me here to visit. And I started laughing and I looked up and I just kind of thanked him, because that's the humor that he had. And that's the humor he'd want me to have. And so those are my two favorites.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a great sort of mix of
Yeah,
tones, sort of
opposite
memories there. So kind of following on from that, in the book you do kind of focus on, finding the funny things, the ironic things, sort of seeing the good in the situations. Why was it so important for you to kind of focus on the humor when you were writing the book?
Because I was so close, and I'm sure all of you have had that special relationship in your life, it was so painful. I felt like somebody had removed a limb. And I watched my father go through life fighting, quintuple bypass, cancer, and everything. He always had a sense of humor. He could take fear and flip it on end and turn it into a joke or a smile. And I thought, if he can do that, then that's how I'm going to need to get through this. Honestly, I don't know what I would have done if I didn't write the book. I can't even fathom that. But that humor, I was still feeling sad. I was still feeling a great loss and a great pain, but the humor really seemed to help make me feel like he was with me. That's what makes me feel like he's with me. Every time I get to talk about this book, I feel like he's sitting here with me. So that's either really fabulous denial or it's a really funny book. But I'm going to go with funny book because, but that's what it is. You take that essence of whatever it is. For some people, it's humor, maybe it's cooking, or times you shared. Carrying that with you keeps that person with you. I firmly believe that. And so that's what that humor is about. That was the essence of our relationship, besides the unconditional friendship.
100%. So obviously you mentioned that your father was, sort of took a turn for the worse during the pandemic, and obviously then you were still grieving during the pandemic. How did that affect you and kind of your family, and sort of being able to be there for each other during that hard time?
It was a very, very difficult time. I mean, ours was one of a million stories that you've heard on the news or maybe even experienced. So, when he passed away, we were able to be in the room finally. But as you know, you couldn't do anything in a group. This was before vaccine. So his funeral was 6 of us, just my mom and siblings. We had to be 6 feet apart with a mask on. Short service outside. Then when you'd normally gather with food and family and exchange stories and love and hugs and that familiar touch, shoulder to cry on, we couldn't do that. I couldn't even hug my mother. I talk about your heart breaking. It was bad enough that my father passed away, but I couldn't even hug my mother to care for her or receive a hug from my mother because I was in so much pain. We dispersed and went to our houses, and everybody coped on their own. And as an aside, the day that we buried my father, I found out my daughter had COVID. And I just thought my threshold was going to explode. I was just like, oh my God, I can't handle one more thing. This is awful. But you know what? You get through it. And so it wasn't until we were able to drive to my mother's house and see her at the end of the driveway. She's got, health issues, so we had to stay far away. I didn't want to compromise her. And so I don't think we hugged or anything for, it must have been a year. I literally one day ran up behind my mother in the garage and I hugged her from behind. And she was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Sorry, I had to." And I ran away. I just, it's hard. We take for granted that tactile healing that we get from people. When you lose somebody, that's what we do. We gather, we talk, we didn't have that. It was really hard.
So you mentioned in the book that you and your siblings all had perhaps a slightly different relationship with your father, and a lot of people kind of in our community mentioned that their family members all were kind of grieving for their person in different ways. Did you find that with your siblings and your mother, and how you grieve for your father?
That's such a brilliant question. We all did grieve in different ways because each person had their own relationship. It wasn't bad, it was just different. I'm very close with my mother, but my mother felt like, they've been married since they were, teenagers. And watching her go through that level of grief, even though she expected it, she knew it logically and rationally that this is what was going to happen. She was beside herself. I was then torn up because I lost my father, and then I was torn up watching her pain. It was unbelievable. The day my father died, I dedicated myself to removing whatever pain I could from my mother's life through delivering food. I'd have puzzles shipped to the house. Again, it's COVID. I couldn't go over there. I FaceTimed her 4 times a day, and I sat and I listened and I cried with her. My sister and I were able to talk and see each other outside. My brother was in another state. He would check in, and everybody grieved. They grieved collectively, and then they grieved based on their individual relationship with him, you know. And finally, when we finally gathered, and the book talks about this, a year and a half later around the table, we were able to get together for my mother's 85th birthday. It was the first time we were all together, being able to talk about our experiences. Think about not being able to share that with somebody. So everybody did grieve. We eventually collectively did it. And we were able to share pictures and things like that. But that's kind of how we did it.
Mm. So obviously there's lots of, really positive messages in the book. And I think your attitude is really, it's really refreshing to see, but also very relatable. I think a lot of things you say as well. Is there anything in particular that you want people to perhaps take away from the book after reading it?
I'd really like people to be inspired. I want them to, I think it's critical that, we meet people in our lives and everybody has an affect to them, whether they're grumpy, irritable, short-tempered, whatever it is, there's something behind that. When we take the time to get to know what's behind that, we have a much richer, deeper relationship. And I think a lot of people did not get to know my father in that way because maybe he could be off-putting because he could be critical or whatever, but he was a kind, loving, warm man. And if you took the time to see that, then you would get those goodies. And so I want people to look past what's in front of them. I want them to never take for granted moments that they have with people that they love. And I want them to enjoy the process and to know that grief is okay. Grief means you're feeling, you love somebody, that you will get past it. And I find that the best way to move through grief is straight through it like a train. If you feel the pain, you get through the other side of it. It's okay to feel pain. Pain is there because you loved, and pain will eventually subside and you'll feel it and you'll be okay and you'll be able to look back and reflect. It changes every day. It changes, the level changes. So I want people to feel inspired. I want them to laugh. I want them to be able to find the joy even in the difficult. I've always said, even in the artwork that I've painted, there's joy to be found even in the darkest moments, because it's all about what we feel and what we felt. And I hope people, I don't want people to think they're going to need Xanax to read the book. You won't need any, it's uplifting and it's touching and it's funny. I want people to feel all those things and, hopefully reflect on special people in their life.
100%. Yeah, that's really lovely. And have you got any sort of things that have helped you cope? Any kind of tips? Anything that's helped you through this really difficult process?
I love to look at photos of my father. I have pictures of him everywhere. I actually have a belt of his that I love to wear. I had sized because he was a cowboy, and so I wear that. I think if you have something special that makes you feel good, that reminds you of the person, have it where it makes you feel good. I have a wind chime in the backyard. The first time I went to the cemetery to see my father, there's a tree near where he rests, and there were wind chimes on it. Now, we're in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I don't know if you're familiar, but it is hotter than my oven in this state. And so it was a hot day. There was no wind. And I knelt down to say hello to my father. And out of nowhere, that chime started ringing. And I looked, there was nobody around. There wasn't any wind. And every time I hear a wind chime, I feel like my father's saying hello to me. So I have a wind chime on my tree in my backyard. And every time the wind goes through it and I hear that little chime, I feel a little piece of him with me. And I think having pieces of those we love with us Journaling helps. If you have a creative process or a creative outlet, it doesn't matter. You're not looking for an outcome. It's just a release. I didn't set out to write a book. I wrote a story because I was inspired. This is a product of that. Whatever helps you heal is what you do, whether it's cooking, talking on the phone, read it, whatever it is. There is no right or wrong and no self-judgment. You go through whatever process you need to go through. And that's what I did. I just moved through my paces until I lifted my head up and I was like, okay, I think I will be okay. So.
And so yeah, where are you kind of now with your grief? Like, how do you feel on a daily basis? Is it still kind of with you? Have you learned to live alongside it?
You know, it's interesting because have you ever worked on a project where you're up here, you're not in here in your heart, and so you're focused on getting the project done? It's not till you're done with the project you start feeling. Well, when the book came out, I was completely touched and inspired by the outpouring of complete strangers sharing their story with me. The fact that my story resonated with so many people was touching. When people started reaching out to me, that's when I started feeling. It was overwhelming, actually. The first time that I had to talk about it. You know, I do a lot of podcasts and interviews and support group. The first time I had to talk about it was emotional. And every once in a while, in the quiet of the day or slow moments during the day, I definitely feel his absence. I can't talk to him about what's going on. And the very person that I'd want to share this with, I can't. But I'm okay. You know, he said everything wouldn't be okay, but it is. Not to be sassy, Dad, but it's okay in a new normal, because it has to be. That's what you do. So yeah, I definitely feel his loss, but I feel blessed that I get to talk about him all the time. So it makes me feel like he's with me.
Yeah, the line that's really stood out to me in the book was where you said, it's not okay, it's just different. I think everyone here probably can really resonate with that, because it's just, you know, it's learning to live alongside it, and it might not be the same, but you can feel okay, you can still find joy in Sunday, you can still, you know, enjoy the nice moments in life whilst remembering and, you know, still carrying that grief with you.
Yeah. And actually, to that point, I created a charm. And if anybody decides they want to order the book and they contact Emma and send a confirmation, I'll send you the charm. I created a pocket charm to carry with you. And it's a reminder that you're perfect the way you are. And that means whatever state you're in. If you need to feel sad, then you feel sad. That's okay. Whatever you need to do, but it's a reminder of the inspiration that the special people leave behind in us. And we carry it with us as a reminder. So it's a little pocket charm.
That's lovely. Were there any of your father's possessions that you've kept, anything that's particularly special to you?
Well, it pretty much looks like a museum in my house, but I have some of his cowboy hats, and I have a stuffed animal that my father loved horses, and when he could no longer ride horses, I knew that I wanted him to have one more horse encounter, but he was not very able-bodied. So one day I said, Dad, why don't you come over and sit on the patio? And I arranged for a woman to bring a miniature horse to my backyard, which is really bizarre, by the way, to see a little horse in your yard. It's the size of like a Great Dane dog. And this horse walked up, and my dad, it was just priceless. And for a few hours, and I talk about it in the book, he was not dying dad. He was not sick dad. He was dad hanging out with the horse. And so the lady that brought the horse presented him with a replica stuffed animal. And when my father died, my mom gave me that horse. So I have it in my office.
Lovely. And my final question, quite a big one, not to put you on the spot, but
no, it's okay.
Has grief taught you anything, either about yourself or perhaps about life in general?
You know, if you had told me 3 years ago that I would have to deal with my dad dying, not only would I have believed it, my family what they were worried. They were like, oh no, what's going to happen here? I learned that you get through what you have to get through. I was in the room when my father passed, a great honor, but also the saddest moment of my life. I learned that I can get through what I have to get through, even when it's the most unimaginable thing. And, you know, to quote the Tin Man from the Wizard of Oz, he said, I know I have a heart because I can feel it breaking. And that's, you know, how I felt. That feeling doesn't go away. You just learn how to cope with it better. So I guess I'm more resilient than I thought I was. You don't plan on resilience because just because you know something's going to happen doesn't mean when it happens, you know, it still is what it is. So I guess that would be my answer, is just knowing that I can go through what I need to go through. And if I need to feel bad, I'll feel bad, but I will get to the other side. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. I'll now, I'll open the floor to any questions you've got from anyone else.
Please.
Feel free to shout out or put it in the chat, and I can read it out to Deena for you, whatever you prefer.
Okay, so should I read through these, or how do you want me?
Yeah, if you've got any questions in the chat. Oh, I think Debbie's got her hand up. Did you want to ask the question, Debbie?
I don't hear anything. Is it on mute?
I'm not sure.
Debbie's on mute.
Let's see. My dad got to die at home. He didn't want to go in the hospital or go into hospice. Yeah, you know, home is J. That's from JN. Thank you for the comment. My father would have preferred to be home, but we didn't have the level of medical care that he needed. And so it's nice that he was able to be, you know, at home, where he was most comfortable.
Does anyone else want to ask a question at all?
Answering somebody else had a question. Let's see. Somebody said, I'm finding it difficult to start this new chapter in my life. Where do I start? It is very difficult. You already started, is my first comment. Whether you realize it or not, every day that you move one step forward, you're in that process. Try not to judge yourself, put pressure on yourself, and just move through your day. And every day that you move through your day, one day you'll look back and you'll think, oh my gosh, it's been 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And you just do things that make you feel good inside, that are comforting. You surround yourself with people that get you, that are okay to sit in silence, that are okay to do, you know, we don't want to be around people that have expectations that we're supposed to bounce back to normal, because that's not reality. We don't just lose somebody. You know, my mother-in-law once told me, she said, you know, after my husband died, she said, first I got food and casseroles dropped off at the house, but after about 5 weeks, people forget, they move on with their lives. But you know what? Mine hasn't moved on. We're still stuck dealing with the grief. So one day at a time, give yourself grace, one day at a time, and you'll move through it. Somebody said, do you find it helps with grief to write about your lost ones? Absolutely. I absolutely do. If you have a favorite story or a funny expression, keep a blank book around. When I was in hospice, I started this because I was sitting by myself. It's quiet. It's not a social time. And I jotted some things down on my phone. And then the next day I did it again. I didn't have paper with me. I wasn't planning on writing, but these thoughts come up and they're important. And it's nice because then you have this to look back, and you'd be surprised once you start writing how much there is to write. It's a wonderful outlet. So yes, I think that's a great idea. Somebody asked, is this available on Kindle? Yes, it's on any digital device. You can download it on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or what have you. And I think Emma's got the information she can share with everybody.
Yes, I'll put the link there, but I'll also send out an email tomorrow with all the links to Deena's Instagram and where you can buy the book from as well.
Let's see, is there any?
Hello.
Hi.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Kibo Amboy. You can hear me?
Yes.
I wanted to say thank you so much for talking about that because I lost my dad last year through
I'm
an
sorry.
accident, and I'm a writer, coincidentally, and I said that I'm going to write a book about him or for him or to say whatever I wanted to say, and it hasn't been easy to get that inspiration. But just hearing you talk about it, like, because I'm so scared I'm going to be in so much pain. I don't know if I'm ready to feel it. I don't know if, I have the title already. I'm just gathering the courage every day. And if I'm able to do it, I'll be so glad. But thank you so much for sharing the relationship with your dad. May he so rest in peace. And just thank you so much for this time.
Thank you. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
I
so
do
kind.
appreciate it.
It's nice to meet you. Thank you for sharing that. And first of all, congratulations. It doesn't matter when you do your project. I think it's wonderful. And my only thought that I would share with you as a writer to writer or anybody, don't be scared of the pain. The pain ends up being beautiful. It is painful. I remember tears dropping on my laptop thinking, oh, I'm going to short out my computer now, crying over my keyboard, which I did. But what happens is pure magic. The pain, that means there's something in there. And you know what? When you're ready, you'll just sit down and do it. And that's okay. No pressure. When you're ready, it's okay. There is no timer on your process. So you do it when it feels right to you. And when it does, it'll just happen. It'll be effortless. Some days it'll hurt. Some days you might find yourself laughing. And then when you sit down and look at what you wrote, it'll be really amazing. So I wish you the best of luck, and I would love to read it when you're done.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm sorry for your loss. I wanted to say that at the top of my message. So
Yeah, may they all rest in peace.
may they all rest in peace. Yes.
Were there any other questions for Deena?
Okay, let's see. I'm finding it very difficult. Is it okay if I read these out loud?
Oh, there's someone asking a question there.
Yes.
I have a question. Hello, Deena.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Yeah, hi.
Yes, I
Hello.
can.
Thank you. And first of all, condolences on your loss.
Thank you.
Obviously, most of us here must have lost. That's why we are here. And I've lost both my parents. I've lost 2 brothers, 1 sister during different times. But the recent ones is my brother last year, which I still haven't been to his grave yet because he passed away abroad in Cyprus, and he had dementia his last year. So even though on Zoom Messenger, my sister-in-law used to put him on, he didn't recognize me. And you sort of prepare yourself, because I didn't prepare for his loss, but I sort of thought I prepared for him not remembering me.
Yeah.
But when they go, it still hurts. It's still a shock. Even though
Yes.
sometimes, you prepare for with my mom as well. She passed away 7 years ago, and she was ill for couple of weeks, and even though I was sort of preparing myself, then when it happened, you never know what hits you. And still after 7 years, especially, sometimes you think you coping with it, and then a new loss happens, my aunt and my brother, and then bring everything tenfold. I just want to know, because I've been in contact with my doctor, and he says to me, you're suffering from depression, but I don't know if it's depression or grief. How do you know the difference?
First of all, I'm so very sorry for your losses, and the pain I understand has to be overwhelming. And you know what? I think it's easy for a doctor to say, you're depressed and write it off. I would be surprised if you weren't experiencing overwhelming grief. And I mean, and like you said, no matter how you prepare, it is a shock. It doesn't matter when it happens and how much information you have, it is a shock. And it takes time and self-compassion and you know, this is a hard thing. It's not easy. We lose people we love and we lose a piece of ourselves every time it happens. You know, do you get that piece back? You change a little bit. You do come back to center, but you change a little bit, and you have to allow yourself to go through the grief. And sometimes, you know, like we talked about earlier, a good way to get a handle on it, especially in your situation, you've had so much upset and loss, writing down what's upsetting you, keeping a journal when you feel upset, you know, as a source of comfort. It's yours to have and yours to write in to release that, because it's important to release that. There's a lot of upset in there. And I'm not saying writing to publish it, it helps. It would be like talking to a friend, except sometimes we don't always want to say everything to a friend because there are private thoughts. But somehow when you put them down, it's like symbolically letting a balloon go. You let some of that weight go, you know? Does that make sense? Does that feel helpful?
I just don't know what to write. And I don't know what to write. I've heard about journaling, but I've never tried it because, to be honest, I don't know what to write, and I'm not a good writer. I've never been a writer.
You don't have to be a writer. So here's what I'll tell you. This is writing about how you feel is not about being a writer. I was a painter first, and I'd walk up to a canvas and I would paint how I feel, not what I saw. So I would tell you the same thing. You start by I statements. I feel hurt. I feel loss. I feel in pain. I feel tired. Whatever you feel, all you're doing is writing down how you feel. It's not a story. It's just how you feel. Does that seem easier?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Write about how I feel.
Yeah, you just talk about how you feel. And if you, in the jumping off point is if you do I statements, it makes it easier. The goal isn't to write a story. It's simply to release. And if you have a safe place to do that, where you don't feel judged, you don't have a doctor telling you this, it's this, you need this is what's wrong. Everybody's going to give you an answer, but nobody's inside of you and knows what you're dealing with. But you.
I've also just put the link for our support groups for anyone who is struggling. You know, it's a very supportive and safe space to chat about how you're feeling with people who understand. So you'll find them in that link there.
And that is very important. And I wanted to bring that. This support group is amazing. This is the safe haven to talk about your feelings and share with people that have had similar experiences. And Emma's done an amazing job. I mean, this is an amazing group. Her platform's amazing, and it's like being in loving arms. So I highly recommend continuing participation in this forum, because I think that would be, you know, very healing as well.
Thank you. I think Pooja, did you have your hand up for the question there?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question. I'm not sure if Deena mentioned it, but would you be able to tell us your dad's name, and maybe we could just think about him for a minute, because he sounds like a really nice dad, and I can really relate, because I lost my dad in 2019, and it was before COVID, but we were really close, like you said, and I'm the youngest, and I can really relate that, you know, then you take on that sort of caring role, and you're just trying to be strong for them kind of thing. And I really hope I can get your book in the library or the audio book or something of it. I struggle to read a lot, but just if you didn't mind sharing, or maybe showing us a picture. I don't know. It's up to you.
Oh, I would love, are you kidding? It's like a, you know, proud mama showing their kids off. So this was my father. Let me show you a cowboy picture. Wait, let me find it. His name was Mark. And I'm trying to find actually one of my favorite pictures. So this is him on his horse. I don't know if you could see that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And what's funny is he would autograph his pictures to me. I said, Dad, what are you doing? You're not famous. He goes, I am famous. You need an autograph. So he would write, "All my love, Dad." And I love that. And, you know, in college, he'd come visit me, and I was in my 20s, and as long as I could do it without crunching him, I would sit on his lap. Even right before he passed away, I wanted to hold his hand because we always used to hold hands, and I have a picture of that, but you'll see it in the book. But it's that connection, you know, but I hope you get a chance to read it. I hope it's a source of inspiration, and I'm so glad that you shared, and I'm very sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Cynthia, did you have a question?
I just wanted to encourage Finance. I don't know if I'm saying your name right, please forgive me. In regards, when you talked about journaling, I lost my husband 9 months now. And what I've done, I have been journaling since he got sick. And then when he did pass, that's how I started my journaling. I just wrote my feelings in bullet points. Like, I'm tired, I hate these things like that. And then you find when you start to write out how you're actually feeling for the day and what your expectations and how, just think anything. If you're feeling angry, because I know the other day they was talking about cancer on TV, and I've got a blackboard in my home, and I wrote on there, I hate hearing this word cancer. Things like that. You just write it. Whatever you're feeling, you just go ahead and write it. And once you start, you will not stop.
I love that. That's very empowering.
So just to encourage you, that's how you just start it anyhow, anyway. Just do little bullet points. I'm on the bus and I'm doing my little bullet points. And then I just start to write, and that's it. And as you said, years along the line, you could just look at it and reflect on where you were to where you are now, you know. So that's just my little encouragement right there.
I love that. Thank you. It's very empowering. That's
You're
great.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you.
You're welcome.
They've got a question in the chat from Fiona. She asked, how do you find hope?
For me, I find hope in waking up every day, being as excited to start the day as I did when my dad was here. I find hope that I have opportunity to hopefully inspire others to move through pain. That's what gives me hope. If I can help other people, if I can make people laugh, if I'm a source of comfort. And I'm a person that I grew up with a lot of love. So when I can share that love, it makes me feel hopeful. So.
Wonderful. Was there anything else anyone wanted to ask Deena before we go? No. Okay, well, yeah, we'll wrap up there because we've been going for over an hour now. But yeah, thank you so much, Deena, for joining us tonight. I'm sure I speak for us all when I say that was really inspiring, and yeah, lovely to sort of hear about, you know, your dad and your relationship with him and kind of how you're continuing his memory. Yeah, really inspirational. And yeah, I really enjoyed the book. And yeah, I hope anyone who reads it also really enjoys it.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me and, you know, providing the opportunity for me to share. And thank you everybody for your wonderful, thoughtful questions. I'm sending my thoughts for any losses you may have experienced, and healing and empowerment for your journey forward, one foot at a time. And feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Emma has my contact information. And if you read the book, I hope you find comfort, joy, hope, and inspiration.
Wonderful. Yeah, I will send over all the information tomorrow in an email. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. We're running more events as always. You can find those on our app. I'll just pop the link for our website and our app in the chat there. And yeah, if you haven't already, download our app to access our community, our content and our care team, as well as support across your whole bereavement journey, as well as all our full event schedule there. Yeah, and I'll send this recording around tomorrow. And And yeah, thank you everyone. Have a lovely rest of your evening, and hopefully see you at another event soon.
Thank you, Emma. Take care, everyone.
Bye everyone. Take care.
Bye. Stay well.
Bye everyone.
Everyone, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.